Good morning, Peace Chapel. Can we give up for the praise team? Amen. We have an awesome praise team. And I love when the Spirit of God just takes control. I think it makes some people uncomfortable, but those of us who are walking with the Lord, we just want the Lord to take control. That should really be the posture of every believer, right? Not just for worship on Sundays, but all throughout the week. We want God to take control and, as the older people say, order our steps. We want Him to order our steps according to His word. I'm telling you, if God orders your steps, you will not lose. You will arrive where you're supposed to be. I want to welcome all of those who are worshiping with us for the first time. I want to say welcome to Peace Chapel. My name is DeAntwan, and I serve as the pastor of this church located in the heart of Los Angeles. I can't think of a better place to be on a Sunday than right here at 11:30. This is the place to be. I'm telling you, this church has it going on. If I wasn't the pastor of this church, I'd still be a member of this church because we have some good people here in this church. And one of the things that I notice about the people here in this church, and also those who worship with us and they're a part of our family online, is that there is this hunger and this thirst for better. I really feel that when I'm around you guys. I feel like the people in this church want to be better, right? And there are different levels, right? We're not all at the same level, even though we're at the same level when it comes to Christ, right? When it comes to life, some of us are in different stages of life, but we all want better. We want to get better. We want better for ourselves. And I want to pastor a church that's full of hungry people. People who hunger and thirst for God's word. People who hunger and thirst for God's will. And I believe that most of you are looking for the right opportunity. I believe that. I believe that most of you guys are looking for the right job opportunity. Some of you are looking for the right business opportunity. Some of you are looking for the right relationship opportunity. You're looking for that yes. You're looking for that open door. You see doors opening for other people, and you want to have those doors open for you. You need an opportunity. But here's what we often miss when it comes to opportunity showing up. Opportunity doesn't just bless you. Opportunity exposes you. It exposes whether or not you're really ready for the moment. I'm reading a book called The Man the Moment Calls For, right? I want to be ready for the moment, and opportunity will expose whether or not you're ready. Opportunity will expose whether or not you've been preparing or if you've been sitting by observing. In 2017, Carson Wentz led the Philadelphia Eagles to a very, very successful season. He was having an MVP season. And in game 14, he went down with an ACL injury. All of his hopes and his dreams of becoming a Super Bowl champion went out the window. Meanwhile, there was another quarterback sitting on the bench named Nick Foles. Nick Foles had rolled the bench the entire season, but opportunity knocked. It was unfortunate for one quarterback, but an opportunity for another one. Nick Foles led the Philadelphia Eagles to win a Super Bowl championship, but not only did he lead them to win a Super Bowl championship, he became Super Bowl MVP. Not because he was sitting on the bench, twiddling his thumbs. But when he was on the bench, he was preparing himself for when his number got called. Some people want the winning season, but they waste the preparation season. You think you can prepare when opportunity comes, but people who really want to win, people who really want to maximize God's favor, they're praying, they're preparing during the off season. Because you never know when your number will get called. You never know when that opportunity will show up. But when the opportunity shows up, it will expose you. It'll expose whether or not you are ready for the moment. We're in the fourth and final part of a message series that we're calling Better Than Luck. And I'm hoping by now that those of you who have been attending know that favor is better than luck. That luck is very random. You know, it's so unpredictable, but favor is predictable. That favor is not just some random chance. That favor is very relational. And so in week 1, we learned that favor is God's gracious hand. It's not mathematical probability. It's not luck. It's not a matter of being in the right place at the right time. And then in week 2, we learned that favor has a lot to do with how we are aligned. That favor is not just an entitlement or a cosign on disorder, but favor requires alignment. That God is not going to stamp your mess. That God is very, very concerned with his reputation. He's very, very concerned with his brand. And so he's not going to let you live chaotically and still favor you. You have to be aligned with him. And then last week we talked about being positioned for favor. That favor is not just what God gives you, but favor is where God strategically places you. That you need to look around at where you are now and stop looking down the road, because perhaps God wants to do something in and through you where you are right now. I know you're waiting for the big moment. I know you're waiting until you get to that neighborhood. I know you're waiting until you get married. But perhaps God has called you to this place right now for such a time as this. And so we've really been looking at the pillars of favor, because what you want is favor. You don't want luck. You want favor because favor is lasting. And so we've looked at so far 3 pillars of God's favor. The first is relational, right? Favor comes from God. It comes from the creator of the universe. But we also learned that favor means that you have to be aligned with him. You can't do your own thing. It has to always be about him. And then the third pillar is that we need to be positioned. We need to have the posture of, I am positioned. I'm going to make the most of where I am. I'm going to make the most of this car that I'm driving. I'm going to make the most of this family that I have. I'm going to make the most of this church that I go to. Favor is about being positioned. But today, we're going to close out with this fourth pillar, and that is favor is about being prepared. You need to be prepared. And so I'm calling today's message, When Favor Meets Preparation. When favor meets preparation. What was the rapper that says, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready? And a lot of you, opportunity comes and you miss it because you're not prepared. Opportunity comes and you don't make the most of it because you're not prepared. You're looking at your position that you're on the bench right now, but you never know when God might call you off the bench into a starting role. You need to be prepared. And so we're going to look at the story of a man that God called off the bench. And when God called him off the bench, he was prepared for the moment. He was the man that the moment demanded. Nehemiah. Many of you are familiar with Nehemiah's story. Nehemiah's story is very inspirational, especially for those of you who are building, right? And all of us should be building. This is building season, right? If you want something to reap in the future, you need to be building right now. The problem with most people is they want the rewards, but they don't want to put in the work. They want to stand on the stage, but they don't want to put in the work to make sure they have something to say when they get on the stage. And so Nehemiah's story teaches us how to be prepared when opportunity comes our way. And so let's look at Nehemiah's story together in Nehemiah chapter 2, starting at verse number 1. It says, "In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before, so the king asked me." And so I want you guys to picture this. Nehemiah is a cupbearer to the king. He's an Israelite who is a cupbearer to a Gentile king. He had a very important position. This was a position that many people from where Nehemiah came from would covet. Nehemiah's role was to taste the wine before the king. That was important because that made sure that the wine was safe for the king to drink. And so now Nehemiah is standing before the king, but there's something odd about his expression. He looks like something is bothering him. And because the king paid attention to those types of things, right, because he recognized that people would try to poison him, he wants to make sure that there's no threat coming his way. And so he says, "Why does your face look so sad when you're not ill? Or am I making a mistake here? Are you sick? Should I refrain from drinking the wine?" The king says, "This can be nothing but sadness of heart." You're dealing with something emotional right now, Nehemiah. I know you well enough to know that you are not yourself. I was very afraid. This is Nehemiah, but I said to the king, "May the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire?" And so now Nehemiah is leveling up. And he's taking advantage of this opportunity. God has called him off the bench, and now the attention is on him. He has the attention of the king, and Nehemiah says, "My heart is broken. When I look at the condition of my community, it breaks my heart. When I look at the condition of this community, it breaks my heart." And Nehemiah says, somebody needs to do something about this. Why not me? And so in verse 4, the king said to me, "What is it that you want?" This is the ask. This is Nehemiah's opportunity on steroids. And I want you to think about this in light of a possible opportunity for you. And somebody says, what do you want? When opportunity says, what do you want? Watch Nehemiah's response. He doesn't start vomiting and word salad talking and just yelling out a bunch of words. The text tells us Nehemiah prayed to God, the God of heaven, before he answered the king. And then Nehemiah answered, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it. Somebody needs to do something about this. Why not me? Then the king with the queen sitting beside him asked me, here it is again, how long will your journey take? And when will you get back? Now, Nehemiah has to be ready for this. And many of you are not ready for this. You want the opportunity, but you're not ready for this. What would you say if the job showed up and the job said, are you ready for this opportunity? If you're ready for this opportunity, tell me why you are ready. Or if funding shows up, you say you want to do a development. If funding shows up and funding asks you for details concerning your vision, will you have something to say? It pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. I also said to him, if it pleases the king, may I have letters to the governors of Trans-Euphrates, so that they will provide me safe conduct until I arrive in Judah. And may I have a letter to Asaph, keeper of the royal park, so he will give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel by the temple and for the city wall, and for the residence I will occupy. Now notice, he didn't say whatever the Lord puts on your heart. See, we like to use the religious words to cover up for the fact that we're not prepared. Nehemiah was prepared. He was sitting on the bench. But while he was sitting on the bench, he was studying the playbook. While he was sitting on the bench, he was studying his opposition. While he was sitting on the bench, he was reading game film. He wasn't wasting time. And so when the opportunity showed up, he knew what to say. And he gave him details. It continues, and because the gracious hand of my God was on me, look at this, don't miss this, because the gracious hand of my God, that's favor, was on me, the king granted my request. Why did God grant his request? Because he was prepared. Why did God use the king to grant his success? Because God watched him prepare. He was prepared. That's why he ran to God before he ran to the king. See, we want to just run out there and get busy. We want to run out there and perform, but Nehemiah ran to God and prayed. And so what we see is favor unfolding in layers. First, we see the tears. Then we see the plan. But you can't stop with just the plan. We need to see the work. And some of you are in the tear phase. You see something that breaks your heart. You see something that stirs you up emotionally. But you haven't put a plan together. And so I want to lay out how this favor unfolds in phases. Phase one is emotion. Preparation begins with a burden. It begins with emotion. See, some of you are emotional. And you're controlled by your emotion. You never step back and use logic. Your emotions can be used for your benefit, but you cannot be emotional. It's okay to look at situations and be saddened by what you see. You should be saddened by children growing up without a father. That should break your heart. You should be saddened by communities riddled with crime and drugs. That should break your heart. You should be saddened by people who end up with HIV and AIDS. That should break your heart. But if you sit on those emotions, or if you use that as an opportunity to talk about it, but you're not really about it, then your burden is not going to lead to favor. A burden is when God lets you feel the weight of something He wants you to help repair. He doesn't want you to sit on it. This is how hospitals get built. Somebody looks out there, they see a problem, and they say, somebody needs to do something about it. Why not me? But the problem in the church today is we look out in our communities, we see problems, we get upset about the problems, and we think it's the pastor's job to solve the problems. We think it's politicians' jobs to solve the problem. Everybody else but us. But Nehemiah wasn't like that. In Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 4, it says, when I heard these things, I sat down and I wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. Nehemiah runs to God. His emotions drive him to God. And now what Nehemiah is doing is he is preparing himself. This is preparation time, right? If you want to properly prepare yourself, the first place you need to go is to God. Not the internet. Not Facebook, not Instagram, not X. I can tell when people have spent time with God by the things that they post on social media. Some people are on social media to perform. If you're feeding homeless people, you don't need a camera. You don't need to broadcast it, right? God honors us when we do good things and nobody sees us but Him. But when you're not preparing and you just want to perform, you run to the stage, you run to the lights, you want to be seen. But Nehemiah went to God and he starts preparing. And then in verse 11, he prays, he says, Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of this your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. What man is he talking about? He's talking about the king who we just read told him yes. How do you think Nehemiah got to the yes? It wasn't him trying to conjure up the right words to say to the king. It was him running to God and asking God to prepare the heart of the king. You want to make the most of your opportunity, but you keep skipping this step. You don't see the value in this step. And this shows that Nehemiah had faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, right? He's hoping for the king to say yes. And so what he does is he uses his faith to go to God and ask God to prepare the king to say yes. He didn't stop with the emotion. And that's what many of you do. You stop with the emotion. I can look at you and I can tell you're sad. I can look at you and I can tell you're mad. I can look at you and I can tell that you're perplexed. And some of you will take that and you'll go somewhere where you can have a pity party with someone. And here's a side note. You don't have to attend every pity party you're invited to. I don't play that. I'll listen to your crying once. But if all you want to do is cry, you need to find somebody else because I'm not the one. You got some people that will find a problem for every solution. And they're so emotionally unhinged. There's a difference between an emotional meltdown and carrying a burden. Some of you are not carrying a burden, you're just having an emotional meltdown. You see something, you start interpreting that through the lens of your trauma. And you conjure up something that's not true, and now you don't like somebody that you should be learning from. Are you guys with me? Now you're pushing people away that you should be working with to fulfill what God has called you to do. An emotional meltdown. An emotional meltdown is all about release, right? You just want to release. You want to get it out of your head. You want to get it out of your heart. But a burden receives assignment. There is work to do. Forget, we've done enough crying. We've done enough yelling. There is work to do. See, a burden reveals what you cannot ignore. Somebody needs to do something about this, right? Some people are good at pointing things out. If finding fault was a spiritual gift, you'd be anointed and super gifted because you are good at finding problems. The people that I promote, the people that I elevate, are people who solve problems. I want to pastor a church full of people who solve problems. And this is where a lot of times men and women clash. We clash from time to time, right? Because sometimes women can be bothered by something and they want to express it. And they just want us to listen. That's it, just listen. And sometimes you just need to listen. They just want somebody to listen to them. But they get mad when we start trying to solve the problem. Because it's the way men are wired. Men are problem solvers. Listen to me, men. If all you do is point out problems without coming up with any solution, you are suppressing the nature that God gave you to be a problem solver. That's what God did. He saw there was darkness. That's a problem. He created light. Are you guys with me? And we're created in God's image. And so when you have a burden, you see something that you cannot ignore. A burden also drives you to prayer before action. Notice, Nehemiah went to God before he ran out there. Some of you are overconfident. I love confidence. I had a conversation with one of our folks the other day, and I said, if I had to choose between a person that's confident and a person that's unsure of themselves, I'm going with the person that's confident. But some people are overconfident. They ignore all checks and balances. They don't want to check in with nobody. They think they're the sharpest knife in the drawer. And then when they blow it, they're looking for other people to fix it. Here's the person you want to align with, and here's how favor unfolds. A burden drives you to prayer before action. You want to be side by side and working with people who pray before they move. I pray before I make moves. Even if it's moves that I feel like I'm sure of. I've done this 20 times in the past. Sure enough, I can just do it this time, right? It was successful the last 20 times. I don't operate like that. I pray before I move because I recognize that my God is in control. And I need His favor. Another thing about a burden is a burden keeps you faithful when the work gets hard. It'll keep you faithful when the work gets hard because the work will get hard. And this is the falling off point for some of you. You're cool as long as it's easy. But the moment you get some resistance, the moment people start talking about you, the moment things don't go your way, and most of the time things don't go our way, you start unraveling. You start falling apart. But that wasn't Nehemiah because he was prepared. And so phase 1 is emotion. Phase 2 is strategy. It has to move from your heart to your head. Are you guys with me? It has to move from your heart to your head. God gave you emotions, but He also gave you a brain. And if you move on all emotion, you are going to be reckless. You're going to destroy everything in front of you. You need to spend some time praying. Phase 2 is strategy. Preparation gives favor something to work with. You got favor. You can maximize that favor by being prepared. You need to spend some time preparing. This is the boring middle. Most people don't want to go through the boring middle. Fun, fun, fun. You're 40 years old. Haven't you had enough fun? It's time to get serious about life. It's time to put a plan together. You're tired of being broke. You say, I'm tired of being broke. You cry about being broke. You pray about being broke. But you won't put a plan together to keep from being broke. Praying is good. I encourage everybody to pray. But at some point, you need to sit down and put together a budget. At some point, you need to start meal prepping. At some point, you need to learn how to use a calendar. You're always late. What that says is you don't respect my time. And over time, people stop respecting you. Just think about it. I mean, I fashionably late, that means nothing to me. If I see you're constantly late, I don't view you as a serious person. It shows that your life is a mess. Here's a side note. Men and whoever, you want to find out whether or not a person is a mess, look at the inside of their car. This is going to have some of y'all running up out of here to clean them cars up. I'm telling you, if the car is a mess, their life is a mess. If a person is not disciplined enough to make up a bed, you think I want you running my company? You can't even make your bed up. You got to be faithful in the small things. Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 6. Here's what it says. Then the king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked me, how long will your journey take and when will you get back? It pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. Verse 7, I also said to him, if it pleases the king, may I have letters to the governors of Trans-Euphrates so that they will provide me safe conduct until I arrive in Judah? Very thought out. Details. This is not something he's trying to figure out when he gets in front of the king. This started right after he prayed. Right after he prayed, he went right into strategy mode. Verse 8, and may I have a letter to Ashvath, keeper of the royal park, so that he will give me timber. He knows he needs timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel by the temple. Look at the details. And for the city wall and for the residence I will occupy. And because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my request. I ask questions. When I'm sitting down with my team, I ask questions. The reason why I ask questions is because I want to know whether or not they are prepared. See, we need to be prepared when the opportunity comes, right? It might come, you're on an elevator. And you meet somebody you never met before. And they give you an opportunity, but they want to make sure that you're prepared. People don't invest in people who are not prepared. Access is coming. But when access asks questions, or asks a question, preparation has to have an answer. You got to answer with preparation. Preparation turns emotion into strategy. The emotion is good, but you need to capitalize off of that emotion, and you need to strategize. See, we want to pray for the door to open, but we're not prepared. And only a fool will pray for a door to open and don't spend time preparing. Do not pray for a door you refuse to prepare for. I got another one for you that believe other people got God's ear and you don't. Don't ask Sister Kim to pray for you.
You helping me, Pastor?
If you refuse to prepare. See, we become so super spiritual that we don't think we need to prepare. But you're not going to find that as you look through the Bible. In the early 2000s, there was a very popular book called The Secret. And The Secret was, a strategy behind The Secret was you just had to think positive thoughts. And if you can manifest it in your mind, you can manifest it in your life. And I'm all for positive thinking. I think positive thinking is far superior to than negative thinking. But if you think that that's the end, that all you need to do is think positively, you are missing everything. You need to strategize. And so it moves from your heart to your head, but then here's the third and final phase. It has to move to your feet. Phase 3 is execution. Preparation must become faithful work. Preparation must become faithful work. Listen to me when I tell you this. Preparation must become faithful work. You want to get off drugs and stay off of drugs. Preparation must become faithful work. You want a healthy relationship that will lead to marriage. Preparation must become faithful work. You want to start a business that just blossoms and you have 20, 30, 40 employees. Preparation must become faithful work. You got to put some action to it. You got to execute. Nehemiah chapter 4 verse 6. It says, so we rebuilt the wall till all of it reached half its height, for the people worked with all their heart. And I want you to picture how they're working. There's a threat approaching, but they don't allow the threat to stop them from working. And so they got the hammer in one hand and the sword in the other hand. Are you guys with me? See, this is another falling off point for some of you. You're willing to use the sword, but you're not willing to use the hammer. You're willing to use the hammer, but you're not willing to use the sword. Some of you think being Christian means being nice. You're not going to find that in the Bible. Kindness, we should be kind. But nice is how people take advantage of you. People that shouldn't be running up on you will run up on you because you're nice. Not so quick when you're prepared. People can tell when you're prepared, they're sizing you up. And they're looking for somebody else to run up on because that's too much of a challenge right there. But some people are just lazy. You just don't want to work. You want to benefit, but you don't want to work. Favor does not replace hard work. It requires it. If God's favor is on your life, you are required to work hard. And see, we've created a culture here at Peace Chapel. We created a culture at the Bridge. Lazy people just fall off. The guys are not having it. I don't need to say a thing. If you're lazy, the team will expose you. Nobody wants to work with lazy people. But see, we think that we think that getting through the door is the finish line. And so the opportunity comes, we get the job, we get the position, we start celebrating, and we think we've arrived. We made it. Yeah, I got it. And we start sitting on our hands. You went to school all those years to get that degree, you get the job, and you think you've arrived. No, that's when the work begins. Access is not accomplishment. It's when the door is open. It's when the work begins. Faithful work continues when opposition shows up. Opposition will show up. Faithful work finishes what favor opened. And we see that in Nehemiah's story. They finished the wall. They didn't allow the opposition to pull them down. The opposition kept calling. Nehemiah, come. Nehemiah, come. I need you to come down, Nehemiah. I want to meet you on the plain of, oh no. If anybody ever invites you to meet on, oh no, you need to say no and don't go. But they kept calling him, Nehemiah, shaking the ladder. Nehemiah, let's meet. Nehemiah said, I knew they were planning to harm me. See, that comes with favor. Discernment comes with favor. God will give you eyes to recognize those who mean you harm, even while they're smiling in your face. And I'll play along like I have no idea. They think I'm going along. I'm just like, nah, I want you to expose yourself a little bit more because I don't want to be the only one who sees you. I want other people to see you too. And so they're trying to get Nehemiah off the wall. They're trying to get him off the wall. And Nehemiah yells down to Sanballat, check this out. This is all you're getting from me. I am doing a great work right now, and I will not come down. Why should the work of God stop so that I come down to you? Are you guys with me? Don't miss that. That's the meat of the sermon. Why should the work of God stop while I come down to meet with you? You don't need to meet with everybody. And every opportunity is not an opportunity for you. If you know without a shadow of a doubt that you are doing what God has called you to do, everything else becomes a distraction. Why should the work of God stop while I come down and talk to you? They're going to get louder. That's what brats do. They get loud, they scream, they demand. Why should the work of God stop while I come down and talk to you? And so Nehemiah kept building. And in verse 15 it says, so the wall was completed on the 25th of Elul in 52 days. Watch this. When all our enemies heard about this, all the surrounding nations were afraid and lost their self-confidence because they realized that this work had been done with the help of our God. Now, I'm getting ready to close, but I want you guys to look at how favor unfolded. The burden becomes a plan from the heart to the head. Then the plan becomes the work. But it doesn't stop there. And the work becomes a witness. See, when you position yourself for favor, when it moves from your heart to your head to your feet, God will bless you in such a way that you become a witness to other people. How did he or how did she, who did not even graduate from high school, do that? It has to be the hand of God. How did that marriage survive? It has to be the hand of God. How did they lose that weight? It has to be the hand of God. And so here's what I want to leave you with. When God's hand is on the work, keep building. When God's hand is on the work, keep building. Don't allow yourself to be distracted by nothingness, meaninglessness. Resistance is not a sign that God's favor is on your, it's not a sign that God's favor is not there. It's a sign that his favor is there. Why do you think they're trying to oppose you? Why do you think you're experiencing the resistance? It's because you're doing the great work. Keep building. You cannot come down. I want everybody in the room standing. I want to close this message series out with an altar. I want to pray for you. I want you to keep on building. I'm praying for some of you that God will give you a burden. Because you've been thinking that it's all about you. It's all about you getting the job, you getting the house, you getting the car. And then when you get the job, you get the house, you get the car, you still want more. It's because you don't have a burden. I want God to break your heart about something. For some of you, you have a burden. You know that there's work to do. You know that you're supposed to be doing the work. But you haven't started planning. You haven't started strategizing. You haven't took it to the Lord. I'm praying for you to turn to God and develop a strategy. Some of you need to execute. You've been getting ready to get ready for far too long. It's time to get in the game. God called your number a long time ago. You're a starter, but you want to sit on the bench. And so I want to invite you down to the altar, and I want you to bring that burden with you, and I want to pray for you. I believe there is power in prayer. I am the product of prayer. Prayer works. Prayer can do what physical action cannot do. Prayer invites the power of God in. Some of you are on the verge of starting a business that will not only transform your life, but transform the lives of the people around you and also your children's children. Some of you are right there, right there. The job is right there. It's within reach. But you're not prepared. You're a prayer and a plan away from favor.